It's huge, and I think it's one of those lost opportunities. The way people in training have typically done feedback is they separate doing the training with the feedback, and I think that they lose a lot of fidelity in their feedback when they separate on it, or when they have a slow timeline between the two.
This is Outside Sales Talk, the best podcast for outside salespeople. I'm your host, Steve Benson, and we're here to chat with the world's top sales experts so that you can get their best sales tactics to level up your game. Welcome back to Outside Sales Talk. Today, I've got Stephen Rhyne with me, and we're going to talk about increasing training engagement with your sales reps. Welcome to the show, Stephen.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
Absolutely. Just by way of introduction, Stephen is the CEO of ConveYour.com. And for the last 10 years, he's been helping out companies like LGCY Power, Vivint, CUTCO. And what he does for them is he helps them recruit, onboard, train, and retain more reps. Stephen has 22 years of experience in direct sales, recruiting, onboarding, training, and rep retention. His platform, ConveYour, helps with all the back office and administrative items needed to grow that type of door-to-door sales team. In today's episode, we'll be covering how to have better engagement with reps during sales training, since that's one of his areas of expertise. So, first question, Stephen, what are the biggest challenges, would you say, that companies face when they're trying to keep reps engaged during a sales training?
Yeah, first challenge is it's just shifted over many years or many generations, which is, I think companies relied a lot on training to be like, it's just assumed that you're going to be engaged in the training because you're going to be at a location in a brick and mortar where there's that conformity. Like, we're losing all that conformity, where you're going to, for first, conformity came from the fact that people kind of believe that they were going to be at the company for a really long time. And 10 years have gone down and down and down. It's not the 30-year Boeing retirement, process anymore. And so with that said, the company sometimes doesn't understand that they actually need to sell and position their training first, before they even get into the what. So the why and the what's in it for me is more and more important. And the hook, like, you got to develop a hook. So I think sales and training people are getting more, are wising up to this, that everything is about the attention game, and that they're fighting for the attention, especially if they're field based, for one app over, which is, their Instagram or whatever. And so they have to really focus on, anchoring their training and what it's in for them. And that looks like, hey, understanding your stakeholder, understanding, like, don't turn it into like, you need to learn this because this is how it's going to help this objective of the company. It's like, no. Paint them a picture of the pain that's going to be caused by, for you, if you don't understand this. So let's say it's a teller at a bank about something like as simple as explaining an overdraft fee. Well, you could explain it to, like, kind of go over their head around how this is going to help the company, talk to more people at the bank, the location, more quickly. Or you could make it about the customer, but really you need to be like, do you know that stress of what it's like to be trying to talk to a frustrated customer as they come to the front of the desk? I want to help you get through that process faster. So that's what's in it for them. And I think that owners of companies, kind of, because we're so used to like kind of eating glass, is they forget that a lot of the thing that drives someone to learn is reducing their anxiety or the pressure or the stress in the role. And so that's the first thing that is challenging, that they need to get right. The other one is just not explaining the process. So nowadays, generations don't like pick up the phone, right? Because there's some kind of thing they don't know on the other end of that call. They want to read reviews. They want to know all the information first before they jump in. Okay. They have so much information that they're used to information. So explain your process. Like, explain how initial onboarding is going to go, or initial training is going to go. You're going to go through this, then you're going to learn this. This is how you're going to get transformed. You're going to be this once you come through. You're going to be awesome at this. It's going to take this long. This is how many units there are. It's just like a video game. So if you start a video game, remember like Mario back in the day, it showed you the whole map. Like you didn't get to go to the whole pieces of the map, but it showed you the whole map. And I think customers we've talked to like don't get that sometimes. They jump them into level 1 without even letting them see level 9, like what level 9 is going to have in it. And so those are 2 challenges. Just in summary, like help the rep understand the whole process. You don't have to get too deep in it, and then go into level 1. And then 2, sell them on what's in it for them.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking back to how dull my trainings were. So I started my career at Allstate was my first job out of college, and then IBM. And I'm thinking back to like how those trainings were. Like at Allstate, they like locked me in this little like closet like place for like 2 weeks, and just like it was
Yeah.
just like a stack of VHS tapes of like, it was like it must have been 80 hours of trainings on VHS tapes. And me and this other girl who had just been hired, we were just supposed to sit in their room and watch them. And I do not think you could get someone in the TikTok generation to do what they made us do. It was like
You're
tests
right.
on those. It was like it was so dull and dry. I don't know if I could get someone these days to do that. It was so bad.
Yeah. But
But
like
yeah,
but see,
there
like
has been
why
a
did you do it?
shift.
Yeah, why did you do it though? Like first you didn't have any anchor in outside of that really besides books, right? Or a whole full-length movie that said this should be faster. This should be an email, not a meeting, right? Um
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it was a duller world then for sure.
Yeah.
I think it was a more, it was yeah. I mean, compared to a book about the insurance industry, these tapes from Allstate were
Yeah,
great.
exactly.
It could have
You're
been.
like, oh,
It
at
could have
least we
been.
got it on VHS, right? Yeah.
I think it actually did come with like a thick, like like with the
Like
like little
binder.
plastic holding, but like
Yes.
between like the little plastic wiry binder thing. Like I think it came with some books like that like went along. It was like the worst college course you'd ever gone through. But luckily, I was fresh out of college, and a lot of my courses are pretty dull. So
Yeah.
I got through it. But but
Yeah.
certainly, I think that the tips and tricks that you're giving here are dead on.
So let me just paint one more analogy, especially because we have the benefit of learning these hard truths working with contractors, or whether they be technician contractors or salespeople out in the field. And in contractors, the experience would be like you sitting in that room or that closet doing training, and having 3 or 4 other companies coming into that room, getting your attention about another opportunity while you're doing training. So and you're a hot shot. So like you're a hot shot, you're put in through this boring training. You're not hooking me, you're not reselling me on why I should be at Allstate. And then somebody else is coming into the room selling them like on a better. And whoever does that better, I always argue, what if you took like an insurance rep and all you did instead of training was just get them really excited about doing the job and learning, like being the consummate person? They'd go on YouTube they might not learn the way you do it, but they'd go and try to learn, how it works, right? You get somebody really, really excited about SaaS sales and the opportunity they have, they're going to just like go start listening to people like Steli FD or something like that, so it's more about positioning what's in it for them than it really is about the what.
Absolutely. Um, how how can how can companies make these trainings feel like less of a chore and more exciting, more of an opportunity? Like how would you advise they capture that?
Yeah, chunk it better. That's the first one. Uh, when we're stuck on the freeway and we're going 30 miles an hour, and it's 60 mile an hour, um, miles per hour, we're like it's awful and it's slow and it's the same road. You get off and you're going past mile markers, and you're going past, we're on a rural road. You're going 30 miles still, but you're still making way more progress. It feels better. Okay. And it's because it's not mundane, it's not the same. And so chunking and pacing, we've heard this pacing in the social media world, is really important with content. And so people make these really big, like, old school SCORM courses where they're just really long and there's these big long videos and there's no interaction. It's a VHS that just keeps going. There's no back and forth at all. There's no engagement. And of course, like, people are going to be like, this is awful. I don't get like a trophy. I don't get any, I don't get a digital, like, you did it, at any point. Take a game like Halo. If you didn't have like actual campaign points where you had a spot where you get to see the video come on, and like, Cortana shows up and everything, and you didn't get like that, and it was just constant barrage, like, it wouldn't be as fun. And so chunking is really important, and that's where you say what you're going to do, you explain to them the process, and then you show them that you actually are going to do the process. So the way that looks applied in our platform is, we typically tell customers, make like lessons that are 7 to 15 minutes worth of content, just a good little 15-minute conversation, a video, maybe a few quizzes, a file, and put it all together. Like, tell them something, engage them, and ask them for feedback all at once. It's a conversation. Then take those little Lego bricks and build out the Lego spaceship with that. But do not make these giant one-size-fits-all courses where you're talking at them for 30 minutes.
And how can you deal with the way different people learn differently? Like, if you were hiring me and you were hiring a 23-year-old I read at a school today, we're different learners, we're different people, we have different backgrounds. If you're hiring us both and do the same job, how do you deal with our age diversity and other types of diversity and gender diversity and all the and just learning diversity? Like, I know different people just learn so differently. How do you make your courses or your trainings fit everyone if you're a company trying to teach people
That
to
is
sell
tough.
better?
So one thing I will say is, like, the whole concept of blended learning, how learning has to be completely different for different people, has been debunked by science in terms of like the concept of LMS, blended learning. What is true though is that a really common problem is, like, I call it the lowest common denominator training, which is, I'm not saying people don't, like, some people see better auditorily or hear, like, learn better auditorily, or better visually and things like that. I'd say put all of those in there. Make it make it high fidelity with audio, video, quizzing, feedback, all sorts of stuff. But the biggest challenge, I think, beyond just like how people think, is actually, I call it learner trust and this lowest common denominator problem. So what happens in companies when they're trying to train on something? I'll give you a scenario. Let's say you've got 100 people out in the field. 20 of them are like super veterans. 20 of them are brand spanking new. And then, like, the other, they do my math right, 60 are somewhere in the middle. Okay. Well, the biggest problem isn't so much like, I'm more auditory. Like, that's all very nebulous. What's really the biggest problem is, you put out a lowest common denominator training, and it's gonna make your veterans roll their eyes and be like, I already know all this stuff, right? Or they think they know it. And then the new people are gonna go, I don't even know what you're talking about. I have no anchors. I don't know what you're talking about with this new product update. Like, so in software, we have a new feature and it changes things, and settings changed and everything, right? Change management. Everybody needs to know about it. So what you do is, you actually, this is what we approach, is you build a kind of like a little game where we use it with workflows. Is you launch out something where you are going to say, first, before we do any training, I'm going to throw out hardball questions and softball questions, and I'm going to build a profile on you. I'm going to build like a little, how much do you really know about this concept, especially even the veterans? It takes a few minutes. And the veteran that thinks that they knew about it, that wasn't paying attention to 3 previous updates, gets like, oh, actually, I don't know about this. And you take them into the brush up section, and they go into the brush up section for a minute, and then you jump them to the new. So you do basically a little kind of workflow, little if this then that workflow, where you give them a score. If they just got trained on the new stuff and they're in the middle in that spectrum, they might go straight to the new and just get the new thing, that the new policy that changed, and they were good. They had all of it in their mind already. The new people, they need the brush up to understand the whole concept completely. And the veterans just need like the middle before they get pushed to the new. So it'd be as if you had someone going around and tapping everybody's shoulder in the office and saying, how much do you know about this? Great, let's start here. How much do you know about it? Great, let's start over here. And you can do that at scale. Like we've had people do this for thousands of people. And it's so much better than that like lowest common denominator, because what it does is it builds learner trust. So learner trust is like when I get something from the training department, like I know that they're not going to waste my time. They're not going to give me like this thing that is either too confusing because I don't know anything about it, or is, way over, like I already know about it and I'm just going to not look at it because I'm a veteran. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And how would you think about making, if you were a company that wanted to have more creative ways to make your training more interactive, more engaging to people that you were concerned might get bored with your training? How would you go about that? What are some things, some ways you could approach that?
Yeah. So here, I'll give you some examples of how we've done that. So first is typically our platform doesn't fully replace like physical or web-based, Zoom-based training, because maybe it's a brand new. They didn't make videos for all the content. So they'll do a training, and then like, hey, by the way, at the end of this webinar, we're going to have a dripped out challenge quiz, right? Where every day you're going to get this little quiz. And then after that, we might have a little backfill on the right answer just to reinforce the learning. And we'll call it the 30-day challenge. In fact, we started out, our first product was helping speakers and trainers and thought leaders have a better experience after their speaking event. So people would join this, and then for 30 days, they're on a leaderboard and they're answering the questions. And they're simple, like multiple choice questions on topics that were in the content. Or in this scenario, what would you do, right? And there's a leaderboard. It's all gamified. And at the end of the session, you've got your top winners for the people that like retained it or turned it into practice. So that's a great way to make something more interactive. Another thing that's really engaging is doing a better job of using your best subject matter experts internally. So I think I'm a big believer that an SME, internal SME, that is closer to your ideal seller profile is going to have way more pull than the person that's, the ultimate veteran or the owner of the company doing it, right? So how that can work out is you can actually, with our tool or other tools, you can send out a request to get somebody to do their best pitch or explain the best concept. Just give me 5 minutes or 2 minutes on you explaining how you get through this objection or how you do this technical thing. And then we're going to take your content and we're going to highlight you and we're going to put it into ours. So instead of using corporate video, use your people on your team. And also use them to highlight maybe an objection and an answer to that. So one of my, this goes back to selling and positioning rather than just training. But we had a tier 1 car manufacturer, who had high attrition on like day 2 and 3 of new factory workers, like new factory line workers. And the things they were leaving for they were sore. Their forearms were sore. And 2, they were anxious about how they were bugging everybody else on the line because they were going too slow. So what did they do? They just took they just went around with their camera, and like talked to people that had been around for only a couple weeks and just say, hey, tell me about, what you were worried about, like after day 1 and how you got past it. Like, oh, well, I was just sore. I was really sore, but it went away like the 3rd day and I got used to it. And I was really worried that people were going to get, frustrated with me, but they were all cool. Done. And they sent that out after the offer letter, right? After the offer, they started a belief building campaign after that, and it reduced the attrition. So it's not even training, it's just belief building. And that is engagement. So.
Absolutely. Well, that makes a ton of sense and seems super important, especially almost every job has its challenges and its tough spots and the things that make it difficult. And especially for people that are new to an industry, that can be huge just to set the expectations, right? I mean, That's always important with all the humans,
See,
is to
like the
set
non-answer
expectations.
to engagement, is, I think this is a controversial answer, but the corporate, um, corporate arms race of making bells and whistles and engaging training is actually a symptom of a problem of lack of engagement and buy-in. Okay, because like let me do this. Do you not learn something on Instagram watching a little 9:16 video? Do you not learn from social media or YouTube or reading a little blurb on Twitter?
You can
I'm
certainly
guessing
learn
we learn
you
that way,
can
right?
absolutely, you can learn complicated things that way.
You learn complicated things that way. Do you need a drag and drop, corporate e-learning thing for you to learn something off of? Like, does people are still engaged in social media, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
You
so
usually not because they're trying to learn things, but,
yeah,
but
okay,
yeah.
right. It could be, a cat video or something. Um, but do you get what I'm getting at? Like, this arms race is coming from vendors, right? When it really is, it's really about the hook. It's really about the content. It's really about you selling, selling the training and then training it in the right pacing. Rather, that's what's engaging. What's not engaging is crappy content, poorly positioned, with some cool, like, drag this over there to match up these two things together. Like, come on, that's not engaging.
Yeah. The I'm trying to think of them. The Duolingo always has those, and I'm like, this is so stupid. It's like match the word to the. I'm like, when
Yeah.
I
I mean,
try
it's
to.
cool, and we do some of it. Don't get me wrong. It's like they're good quizzing capabilities, um, and I do like engagement. But I used to be on the bandwagon of like, let's just keep making really cool, engaging formats. And over time, I've just been like, we're solving them for the wrong problem. The problem really is helping our customers understand the psychology, and do better psychology with people.
Yeah, well, and I think competition gamification is particularly important with salespeople and when you're
Yeah,
training sales
yeah,
teams. How important is that? What role does competition and gamification play in
yeah.
increasing engagement when you're trainings? Would you say?
Yeah, so the what we found is the gamification is actually very helpful early on when you can't rely on lag metrics. You can only rely on lead metrics on somebody's effort. So especially when you're working with 1099, there's a lot of training there's zero training you can really tell people to do on 1099. You can kind of quote unquote, this is required to do the role, but you can't really force them to do anything. So when you see a rep or technician engaging in your elective content and playing the game, it really helps you know which, for your managers, who to focus on as someone who has earnest in doing the role. So early on, it's a really, really, really great way to identify probably the players that want to really play the game before they have any lag metrics, which is the number of installs, the number of sales, right? Um, and it creates community. It creates uh, good competition. Like, I mean, obviously it's for competition, but the points doesn't really matter. Like, we have people create different levels of denomination. Sometimes they're like like Swiss francs, where it's like 1 or 2 points, and sometimes it's Zimbabwean dollars, where it's like 10 million points, for this, answering this one question. And then it's really about like what you do with that. So are you communicating to your field like the top winners? Are you sharing that out? Are you highlighting it? It means nothing if you don't do anything with it. But if you do put some hype around it, and you foreshadow it early on, that's where it really wins. So it's really just around how you hype it and how you put context around it.
It's always amazing how hard people will try if the winner gets an iPad.
Yeah, it's true. In fact, that 30-day challenge I was telling you about with this speaker, he had, I mean, like, executives from like big companies, Coca-Cola and Marriott, and like all these companies like clamoring for the next, the next question. I just thought that was so cool. They're like, when's the next question? I think I got that one wrong. I accidentally hit this wrong button. Can you reset it for me? And so they were stoked. So that's kind of cool to see. Competition is not just for entry level competition. It people love it at all ranks.
Absolutely. And there's something to competition also. It's a feedback loop, right? You're competing. You're seeing how you're doing in comparison to your peers. What other roles do feedback loops play, and just feedback in general, like direct feedback? How can that play in really making a training successful, keeping reps engaged in the training?
Yeah.
What's the relationship there?
It's huge, and I think it's one of those lost opportunities. The way people in training have typically done feedback is they separate doing the training with the feedback, and I think that they lose a lot of fidelity in their feedback when they separate or when they have a slow timeline between the two. So a lot of LMSs just don't support this. So this is me being part of the arms race and saying this should be done, and as our tech does it. It is that for example, you watch a little video, you answer a few quiz questions, and then you give them an opportunity to provide feedback right then and there about how this went for them. Or you give them a poll question right then and there in the lesson itself. You mix and match it and say, on a scale from 1 to 10, how did you feel like this, landed for you? Or would you do this? Or do you feel confident right now? You could ask the same question over and over again, right? Are you feeling like before and after? Are you feeling more confident now that we've gone through this process? And what they do typically is they'll use something like what's that one, Survey Monkey or something, and they'll do it like way after. They'll ask for response way after. And first, it's lazy because you're asking them, you're taking more and more time. Then they're having to recall back what happened when you could have just done it right at that vignette of time that you had with that person. It also is slow for you because now you have to reconcile the results and figure out what the next thing is to train on. Whereas with a right system that has automation, you could actually say, was this enough training for you? If not, hit this button and we'll kick out a new course for you right now. That's your feedback. I want more on this. And we'll just automate it. We have people that have 4 people in their training department and are training 4,000 reps a year. And
Wow.
so that's done through being able to do feedback and being able to launch out stuff depending on how people react or what's in their profile.
Well, and being great at training is a part of scaling your business, right? I mean, you always have turnover. If you're growing, you always have new people, and this is important, right? It's a key piece of it.
Yeah.
What about retention? What are some ways to follow up and ensure reps retain what they've learned?
Yeah. I would say focus more on the long tail. I'm kind of beating a dead horse here, but focus more on the long tail of training than the front end. So take more time from, like, if I was going to train kids how to pick up, you have a 3-year-old, right?
I do.
Okay. So when they start wearing socks, right? A 6, 7, 8-year-old, and you're training them to pick up their own socks. Would you?
We're not there yet.
Yeah, not there yet, right? But at that age, would you, Steve, like put on a sock outfit and make like a whiteboard, presentation, and make a song, get AI to make you a sock, pick up your sock song, and then present that to your child, and then expect like that land and make such an indelible mark that they would just pick up their socks forever? Okay.
We do have a song about picking things up.
Okay, cool.
But that's not socks specifically. That's stuff in general.
Yeah. I like it. Don't keep it so specific. Like everything should be picked up.
It's like clean up, everybody clean up. I forget how it goes exactly.
We used to do that one. I like it. We need more of these parental songs that are like a mnemonic device that we can use to remember training.
Song is great, and it sticks in your little brain.
It does, like the States song or other training songs. So songs are great, but my point though is that what's more likely is you're going to have a little explanation about why we clean up our socks. You're going to skip the presentation, and then every once in a while you just be like, clean up your socks, clean up socks. Did you clean up your socks? Clean up your socks. Um, and so many companies do the first thing, which is they spend a bunch of money to make some crazy course to explain something, and then they don't do any follow up. They don't create a drip email campaign or drip texting campaign or anything to keep that going. Like they just it's just all up front, and then they check a box and they tell corporate that they trained on it, and then it's done. So that's a long way of saying build a drip campaign that quizzes them on the content, like brings it back up. If it's something simple you don't need a quiz on, then just remind them and highlight, how other people are doing with it. Tell them how if it's a number that needs to move, share that number with them and build a campaign to sell them on why they need to keep this top of mind. And that's where I think most people need to spend their time is spending on how, for the long run, how are we going to get from A to B, and how am I going to remind you through the journey to do that? And so again, that comes with gamification, with quizzing on the content, asking them the question first, not telling them. So quiz them. By quizzing them, they are it's immediately evident that they did not retain the information, and then you backfill. So if you just tell them, it's like, yeah, I already knew that. If you quiz them, then they're like, oh, what are they going to ask me next? What else I need to go review the initial training, right? And so that's how we do it.
Do you have any examples of trainings that you've been involved in where you were able to really improve engagement, or you got really great engagement? And what would you say the specific changes you made in that circumstance were, or what was it that made the engagement, and what made the results? What got the kids trained? What would you say? What do you have an example that you've been involved in that really just nailed it?
Just nailed it. Well, one was, I can't name the company, but a very large company that had a very slow conversion to fully compliant rep. And it was slow in that the rep had to be fully compliant before they could hit the door to sell. And they would put off their training over and over again. And then right when they had to go out on the door, they would just like jam through the training. Okay. And then they also would jam through the training, and the way it was pass fail. So they would jam through it, and they didn't get the right answer. They had to restart the whole thing. Okay. And so it was this big brick of content, compliance training, huge brick. Then they wouldn't get it. And then they'd have to restart the whole thing. And then they couldn't go out and sell. And then managers were mad. And so what we did is we split it all up, like I said, created better pacing. And then we put in pass fails at each individual micro level. So if they didn't get the right answer, or the right content on the early level, it would say, start over. And what it did is it changed the entire behavior. So the behavior now is, I'm expecting that I actually have to lean in and actually have to listen to this, because I can't wait till all the way to the end to find out that I'm failing. All right. So that just increased the feedback loop, chunked it down to smaller bits. They increased the shareability a lot. So by chunking down too, there's another aspect that's really great, which is managers can take one tiny bit of the training and shoot it over to somebody. When you make it really big, there's no referenceability. It's like having the old Flash apps where you couldn't link to any one page, in the application. You had no routes. There was no routes to deep linking into a specific part of the website, right? And it's like that sometimes with training, where they give this giant zip file, they upload it, and you can't get to one specific part of it. Okay, so by doing those things, making it smaller, adding more feedback loop and quizzing and pass failing, to each individual item, they were able to get people started faster on the training. It wasn't so scary, and they were ready before they were out on their trip.
That makes sense. Kind of a first a first lesson's an easy lesson and you get through it and you pass it and you're like, I get okay. The first level's easy. Got it.
Yeah, yeah, it's more of just, like how to shoot your gun, how you know what I mean? Like a level where like how to
Hmm.
throw the ball, how to do this thing, and you get your bearings and your confidence goes
Exactly.
up. Yeah.
Totally. And what measurements or KPIs do you use to determine if a training program is successful or not? I mean, whether or not they pass it, attend it, did they learn the things? What do you recommend?
Yeah, well, I mean, first it's
Especially if it's like
completion.
a softer skill. A lot of times these sales
Oh,
training
yeah.
programs, it's like, oh, we're trying to improve everyone. We're having a challenge in the business with our margins, and so we're trying
Mhm.
to improve everyone's abilities in negotiation. And it's very, it's a softer skill. You can't be like, yes, no. Do you know how to negotiate now?
Exactly. Yeah. You can only train right, so, um, on that, it's always like that is an age-old question. And so what we do is you train as much as you can on knowledge, like factual knowledge. When you get to the soft skill stuff, we use video coaching. So a rep uploads a video. You have when you before you ask for that video, you actually put in like a core competency rating, like how you're going to rate the video. They upload a video. You say, okay, I'm going to give them a 9 on accuracy. I'll give them a 7 on confidence. I'll give them this and this. Um, and then you share. You say, great job. You give them a little review. They get a an email with their star rating, right? And that's scored. And you can actually say, you can't move forward until we get a video from you that's like this score. So that's a manual intervention. We want to replace that with a little bit of AI. Like this is the best case scenario. Compare it to this best case version, and just automatically rate it. That's what we want to do. Uh, your question, coming back to it, was about how do you rate, actual engagement, or like what metrics do you use? Um, there's a bit like let's go up the level, like the most difficult, like easiest to the most difficult. Completion rating, like are
Outside sales leaders, are your conversations with buyers falling flat? Join us in a virtual forum we're holding called The Conversation is Broken, where we're going to tackle the gaps between what buyers need and what sellers deliver. This is an open discussion with real decision makers about what they want from sellers. Hear from leaders in your buyers' industries as they share insights and actionable takeaways that you can use immediately. The virtual event is Tuesday, October 21st, 9 a.m. Pacific. You can reserve your spot today with the link in the show notes.
completing it. Then next one to get is engagement rate. Like how deep, are they starting in the course? And then that's your funnel, your engagement funnel. So your first 3 lessons are getting completed. Do you have that? Like a lot of these courses don't have that. These systems. So do you have just pass fail completion, or do you actually know where people are dropping off in the course? Um, then the third one I'd say is actually doing some kind of manual intervention, like I was talking about with ratings and quizzing, to see how they're doing on the completion, or like understanding and retaining the information. But on the soft skill, the really only thing you can do is like connect your data back to a delta between the result that you want. So, and that's so hard, but it can be done. So like we have a system where you can send us outside like live data of sales or increase in referrals or whatever back to a rep's profile. And so you can say, like, let's say in software, we have tools like Intercom or whatever. Okay. You have people that aren't using this feature. Then you send out messaging. Okay. Like what goal are you trying to improve? Number of people using this feature. Right. And so it's the same thing, except the reps are the users of your company. So,
Absolutely. Makes perfect sense. Well, next stage of the podcast here is sales in 60 seconds. So quick questions,
okay.
quick answers. First question, what are some signs that a company's training program is failing to engage the reps?
I mean, lack of like, well, when it's required, it's hard because if it's required, then uh, you don't know if they're just requiring, you're just doing it to check a box. But I would look at the difference between your absolutely required training and your elective training. And if your elective training is completely abysmal, that means that you are relying 100% on a big stick, and that's it. And you don't have any other skill in terms of getting engagement.
Have you seen a shift in how reps prefer to learn in recent years? I just feel like so much has changed in the way people are structured to deal with content in the last, TikTok, it wasn't even a thing 5 years ago, and now it's huge. Things like just the short form video and super engaging content. Like, to train my sales reps, do I have to like put on a speedo and dance, or like what's the
I want to see that,
what's
Steve. Come on.
no, nobody wants to see that. What is what changes have you seen, and how can we deal with that?
I mean, number one is whether the reps know it or not. Like, they're susceptible to a good hook. They're susceptible to the good, first 3 or 4 minutes of a video. They might say, "Oh, it's business. I gotta pay attention," but they still have their brain, like their psychology is used to something being more exciting. That's why we have fruit fly level attention span, because there's people out there that are really, really good. Have you ever seen one of these Instagram videos where like 10 hooks you need to use, and they rip one off and explain this hook, right? And if you get into social media marketing, you start to see these things are the type of things that trainers need to learn and use in their training. So biggest shift is the bar has gone way up in terms of getting people's attention, and you got to get good at, you got to like brush up on your skills there. Don't start when you start a video, start with what they get, then unfurl. Don't start with like an introduction and a summary and say 9 words that don't matter. Start with what they get. So that's the big shift. Another shift is that reps are just getting way more, like they're just we're in the new wave of the second Google, which is just answering everything with AI. So we got the Google. We were like, yeah, mom, dad, don't worry about it. I can Google it later, right? I don't need to like know it in my head. I don't need to know where Portugal is. I can just Google it, right? So we were like, of course you need to know where Portugal is, because you might be in a conversation at dinner and you need to understand so you don't look like an idiot, right? But now what is expecting is that reps are going to go, I don't need to know all of this up front. Stop it. I can just ask AI between doors a question to get an answer. And you, company, better have a way for me to ask with AI, because that's an expectation that's going to come. So it's more like, instead of teaching a man to fish, it's like, don't just give me the fisherman that will be in the boat with me, and I'll ask him questions.
That makes sense. What would you say the biggest mistake or mistakes that you see companies make when they're trying to teach their reps things, and when they design their training programs, or when they give their training programs? How do we screw this up?
Again, biggest mistakes. I know I'm repeating myself, but again, lack of sales. It's just a lack of selling. Lack of what it is a bigger problem. Is just treating your salespeople totally different than you would your own prospects and customers. If you apply what you do with your customers and your prospects, and you treat your reps like customers, everything kind of like the psychology kind of starts to line up. So, if you're talking to a prospect, you're not going to say, you're going to start with what's in it for them. You're never going to be like, well, let me make sure that you fit our ICP. Let's make sure that you have all of these things. No, like, you're going to answer their questions first and make them feel comfortable, and get them. It's just chip on the shoulder that business owners have, where they're like, I didn't get that when I was getting, hazed through Allstate, right? You should just have grit. You should just have grit. It's not that the rep doesn't have grit. It's just they have 3 other opportunities where they figured this out already. So that's
Right.
the thing that people aren't thinking about.
Well, I read some stat, and I forget exactly what it was, but it was something like, in Gen Z, like it was a big number. It was like 60% or something enjoy watching like Netflix and other streams while they do their jobs, and that's one reason why
Yeah.
they like working from home so much. It works really well for them, because they get to watch TV while they do their jobs, and that's how they studied they studied sitting on a couch like in front of a TV,
Yeah,
and now they'd like to do their
blows my
jobs that
mind.
way too. It's and I'm like, you can't be doing as well when you're if you're not focused. But maybe they can. Hey, I don't know. I doubt it. But
I would totally disagree that they can. I think that multitasking is a like, total myth. But yeah.
I know that
Even
I
music with
can't do it.
lyrics, like they study that even music with that have lyrics can affect your concentration level.
Yeah, I can listen to music as long as there's no lyrics, and it also can't be that engaging. Like it can't be Beethoven; it has to be like boring.
Oh, really?
Like yeah, like
Yeah.
even like good classical music. I'm like, no, now I'm paying attention to this. This part's really interesting.
Oh, this
So
is a really good song. Wait, what was I doing?
yeah, where am I? So I need to like be zoomed in to just to I could certainly never do that, but I have seen people that can function in that way. But I suspect they would be functioning at a higher level if they weren't doing things like that. But I guess it that's a big challenge. I think was just the expectation. If I certainly couldn't have watched those really, really dry videos about the insurance industry for 2 weeks straight if every 24 seconds my phone was vibrating and one of my friends was texting me and I was texting them
Yeah.
back, or I was checking out a really cool if while I was watching the dry insurance video, I also was watching uh I I don't know, some great show on Netflix streaming. I
Yeah.
don't think, but
Yeah.
but I do think that these are big challenges as we seek to teach people things. Is that they have different expectations about how they should learn and what's okay, and just how you know remote and hybrid sales training. I think that a lot of training gets done remote or hybrid or
Hmm.
in a corner of the office where you can't really see him anyway, and no one's watching him. And I mean, Allstate literally, I don't know if it was a broom closet. It was like this in my mind. It's like a 6x8 room with bad
Yeah.
carpet, but maybe it was bigger. I don't know, but it was like a little TV, like a 12-inch TV,
Hmm.
black and white
It's
probably.
like super tiny, like a CRT, like the ones
Yeah,
you
yeah,
like have a
literally.
dial like this.
Yeah, like fuzzy. I I don't, but like certainly like for if you were training someone remotely and you dry stuff and they're also watching Sons of Anarchy on Netflix, it's just
Yeah.
it's going to be it. What are some how would you advise people to deal with the distractions, and also what are the best practices for remote or hybrid type sales training situations that you would think would make a company get the results and get people up to speed the way they want them to?
Yeah. So one is something that I haven't touched on yet is try to make the hybrid or the remote training feel more like a group of people is training you, or that you are part of a group that you just can't see yet. And so this is like where you've seen in a lot of a company or a lot of community based, they do like academy or cohort based onboarding. Um, so they'll say, "Hey, you are in a group that's going to be put together. You're not launching individually. You can't just leave out of the group. Like you're going to be part of this group that's going to launch at this time." And so, if you are hiring, sometimes the best thing to do is, even though your content might be evergreen, make them feel like they're part of a group of a cohort that's launching together. Because then you get to use third party and social proof as part of the way to increase that conformity. Okay. So you get that leaderboard that's just people that are like the list of people that were in your cohort, and you care about those people, right? Whether you've met them or not, like, okay, now I know this person. You've met them on the Zoom, you saw their face on the Zoom, and I can't hide, right? So that's a tactic that you can use to increase conversions. And you see that in people building communities all the time. So that's a really helpful tip. Um, and again, like I said, more touches, more what's in it for them, more selling, more positioning.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When I went through IBM's sales training, and this is right after business school, and they used to have this program. It was like you were basically a sales trainee for a year, and you were also
Hmm.
working the sales job. And like it was kind of they onboarded you during that time. You were doing a full time sales job by the end. But the first time, especially, it was like first I don't know 4 months or something. It was probably half training, half doing the job, and it just kind of the training eased out over the course of the year. But it was a year long program, and they would fly us to different and it was the way you were describing it. It was an us. It was a cohort that from all around the
Hmm.
country, and they'd fly everyone to some IBM office in rural New York or down in you know Georgia or wherever,
Yeah.
and and you'd be there for a week or sometimes 2 weeks, and just in classes during the day and doing a lot of doing trainings and learning about sales, learning different strategies, different things, and that was super valuable. I do think that as you're saying, the cohort element was really important. Like we all knew each other really well. I mean,
Yeah. You can commiserate together about the hard parts and the challenges, even the stuff you don't like. Like it creates social capital. You know.
yeah, well, learning about servers was nobody's cup of tea, right? Speeds and
Yeah.
feeds is never going to be exciting, but fortunately, the
Yay,
cloud made it so we,
PGP.
we we never have to understand any of that again. Thank you,
Thank you.
Bezos. we appreciate you. We appreciate the cloud,
Yes.
but yeah, I think your point's really important there. Yeah, that definitely was true
Yeah.
for
I
me.
was gonna ask you about the Allstate, content. Uh, how much of that Allstate content did you use in the first month on the job?
I think a lot of it was actually pretty valuable. I mean, they're a huge company, and they have to teach everyone kind of similar things. And so I think they had invested in making these videos, and they were, I mean, they were very dry, but
Yeah.
it's who wants to learn about insurance? Nobody. But
Yeah.
it was. I think they had done it. They were just for them. It wasn't like it was how insurance works at our company that you just started at. So
The
I
counter is a sickness, I will say. Um, or it's a symptom of a problem that I can't put my finger on. But back then, because you had that conformity, because you had your attention, like you're going to learn it all, and you're going to learn stuff you didn't really need right away. But then you get to that point, oh yeah, I remember that in that video, right? And then you have a bigger knowledge graph in your head, and people are starting now because we're having to make sure that we keep this attention. So attention, the fight for attention is killing the ability to create a bigger knowledge graph earlier before you even need it. So
That makes sense.
now you have people like where they get stuck, like you're on a conversation and they just had enough attention to learn the bits to start the role. And I still advocate for that because that's the way the world works. But at some point they're going to go, oh, I didn't take the time to fully understand this whole system at its core so that I can improv a little bit with this prospect. I
Yeah.
can't, because all I know is what was on the nose in my little attention vignette.
Yeah, well, as you say this, I just think you should be nice to high school teachers because I feel like they've got a really hard job these days. Like it was hard
Oh,
when
it's
I was in
huge.
high school, but now
It's
I
so
feel I
bad now.
feel I feel like it's gotten harder.
Yeah, I watched
I've-
this social video of this teacher going, "You don't understand. It's like I'm talking to people and nothing's going through. Like I just." But I mean, that's probably an age-old problem that every generation.
I mean, my teachers probably felt that way too, but I
Yeah,
didn't have a supercomputer in my pocket with every cool video ever made on it.
ever
So,
made in your pocket. Yeah,
I mean, passing notes, they have cell phones. Can you imagine?
yeah.
You can pass notes with anyone in the whole school or your
Anyone
friend
in
at
the world.
another
Yeah,
school. Like
yeah. That's
it's got
wild.
to be a wild thing right now.
Yeah,
But well, and lesson we should be appreciative for what those people are doing because we
yeah.
think we have hard jobs. Now that's
Oh, I
a
know.
hard job.
Yeah,
We like
that'd be a person to interview right there. Is how does a teacher
well,
get
and
training done?
teaching is sales, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I think that would be a great training ground for sales, being like 7th grade math and science teacher, I mean, you know how to sell. You're like, it is my
Yeah.
job to sell you on the concept of algebra for the
Yes.
next like that is let me tell you how you're going to use this trigonometry. So there's triangles, right? And it's going to be
Yeah.
super important in your life, the angles of these triangles.
Yeah.
How I don't know. Let me
Yeah. Yeah. At some point, you're going to do something in your life where you have like you have two known constants and one not variable, and you're going to need to figure that out.
I have
And
never
that's
understood why we teach trigonometry and not statistics. I use statistics all the time and like just
yeah,
the way I think about the world and just
yeah,
business and I have never once used anything learned in trigonometry. Like not once. Even
or
calculus.
trig. Yeah,
Even calculus I've run into a couple times in my adult life. But trig, which comes first?
yeah.
Never ran into that. Maybe I just don't build enough triangle
Yeah, like my wife
things.
is an architect. She uses trig all the time. Like
That
trig
makes
all the
sense.
time.
But
But
does
like,
she, or
what?
does the software do the trig for her? Because I
Does
bet the
CAD do it?
software, yeah, I bet
Yeah, yeah,
CAD's doing
yeah, yeah.
she's not Sokotoing.
Yeah, you're right.
I
She's
call
using like the 3-4-5 rule. Like it's very
yeah
basic, stuff like that.
I call bullshit on the Pythagorean theorem on this one.
But now,
Uh,
hey, those algebra buffs are like linear algebra, matrices, like
mhm.
building AI stuff. So
Seeing,
calculus.
I don't build it. I just ask it questions
Yes,
about how
you
to
just
what
applied
temperature I should
science.
cook meat at. But
Yes, exactly.
um, so, in your opinion,
Hmm.
actionable takeaway, what could, if a company was thinking about their sales training right
Hmm.
now and you
Yeah.
had 1 minute to give them one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be given all your experience in sales training over the years?
Yeah. Don't don't just make training for the sake of it. Don't take any of my advice for the sake of it. Just take first principles problems. Just take it all in first principles. So all training should be. Or don't make training for the sake of making training to check off a box or have a person that's like your CLO or whatever. Just start with um, what goals do we have as a business, and that's why a trainer should get involved like at the if they can just be a wallflower on the board meeting or something like that. Just say, what are we trying to accomplish here as a company, and how are the people that I train part of that? Get very clear on that and say, let's work backwards. What has to be true for these people to accomplish that? What skills, what competencies do they have to have? And just work backwards, just like we would work on a sales number in terms of what you want to hit, right? Like, well, I have to talk to these many people. Blah, blah. Work backwards, build a model for and then test for the gaps. Just test for the gaps of the training and prove your hypothesis, right? I'm going to test really hard questions. I'm going to try to test on these concepts, or I'm going to do an interview and find out like they're lacking these skills. Then you've got your thesis for like what you're going to go do with somebody, or go do with the group. You've got buy-in. You've got everything you need to get investment, because it's all what the company wants in the first place, right? Then go build. Then go say, what are the objectives? Why would reps not agree to listen to this? What's in it for them? Build that out. That's your sales and marketing on it. Then tease it out. Don't even build the training. Tease it out and get response and say, this is coming. Okay? Like product marketing. And then build out the training, launch it, and set a delta of like what the number was, and see if you move the delta on that number. That's what like skin in the game training looks like, versus the training I've seen a lot in corporations, which is my job is to train on these things, check a box, and do compliance, and say people liked it.
Yeah, that makes sense. When I was at Google, that was the training. It was they had all this, everyone in sales. They had go do a presentation to the head of training, sales training. But like it was a presentation on all the products that we sold. And it was just like
Yeah.
take them through and they would give objections and yada yada. So it was kind of a role playing pitch
Yeah.
situation that lasted like an hour, but it was very compliancy, right? It was just like,
Hmm.
yes, they they passed or they need more training, and that report went to our manager, their opinions on what we were good at, what we were bad at, that sort of thing, all went back.
Hmm. Hmm.
um,
Yeah. People in training are in a hard position because, frankly, I've seen a lot of content and a lot of do this to make this and a lot of work on their end. And sometimes the things that they're doing in training aren't even connected to the goals that the company has for the quarter or for the year. And then it's like now, and so you wonder why you treat me like a cost center versus an investment, because nobody's like, it's kind of set up to fail in some cases, when training should really be like, no, if I'm really important, then I'm going to know what the goals are of the company and I'm going to be aligned with them. And we're going to train on that, not this thing over here that has nothing to do with the goals of the company. So,
Yeah.
I mean, typically when there's a recession, training is the first thing to hit, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a great time to sharpen the sword, because you might have to do less with more.
Yeah.
As we look out over 2025 here. It's April when we're recording this, April 2025. So
it went by so fast. Q1 was
right, a blur.
Gone. Yeah, it was a blur.
Well, I will try to summarize what you taught us today here in 2 minutes or so. So companies need to sell their training more to their reps before they get into the training. They need to share the why and share the what's in it for them. At the start, you want to explain the whole sales training process and all the steps that the reps will go through so they can see the big picture. And then break up your sales training into parts and think about the pacing of those parts. Before you do any training, throw out some lowball questions and some hardball questions to see where different reps are at and customize their training based on their current knowledge level so that everyone's engaged. This builds learner trust because they know their time won't be wasted, training on things they already know, which nobody likes to do. Highlight your best reps on your team and have them teach your other reps. Use their understanding as an example, and they can better relate to your team, and people listen to them because they're in the same role, and that can really increase engagement. Gamification can be very helpful early on in training to identify people who are really invested in the job. You can put some hype around the gamification and see who wins. It makes it more fun, more engaging. In general, feedback is huge. Take feedback during the process and then be able to act on it immediately. Want to focus on the long tail of training. Make sure you don't only focus on the initial training, but instead follow up and bring up the training over time, weave it back in. Sales training should include a completion rating and also an engagement rating. Understand as you evaluate your sales trainings, right? So understand where people are dropping off, because that's super important to know what needs to be improved, right? This has been super, super helpful. We really appreciate your time, Stephen. Where can our listeners read more about your work? How do they reach out to you? How do they get to know more about you and what you do?
Yeah, I mean, the best thing is to check out ConveYour.com if you're interested in learning more about our processes. We have a guide there you can register for. So ConveYour.com. Click on get pricing and demo on the top, and you can go through to learn about how we do things. That's the best place.
Fantastic. Well, this has been a great episode of the Outside Sales Talk. If you've enjoyed the show, give us a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to this. That's super helpful. If you work in field sales, you'll love the Badger Map. Helps you sell more, drive less. If you can think of any other sales reps that would benefit from learning more about designing training programs, other sales managers that would learn more or could use this, definitely forward this episode along to them. And take care until next time. Thanks for coming, Stephen. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.